Okay, so we continue with Chapter 8, the Samapattis, of this treatise by Vasubandhu. That's the last chapter. As we now already know, after our learning of the past chapters, that it is our defilements that give rise to our karma, our actions, and it is those actions that have created or manifested this world of three realms, this world of samsara. So, to put an end to samsara, we need the path of vision and the path of cultivation to abandon defilements. And the key antidotes to abandon defilements are the cognitions, especially the pure cognitions, as we have just learned in chapter 7. However, cognitions would never arise alone. They depend largely, they're highly dependent actually, especially those pure cognitions. They're highly dependent on samapattis. And in Buddhism, we usually say that we have this threefold training, uh, and they're sometimes expressed as morality, concentration, and wisdom. And if we say it with Abhidharma terminologies, we can also say disciplines, samapattis, and cognitions. It is just impossible for the latter to arise without the former. It is impossible to have concentration or samapatti without the moralities, and it is impossible to have wisdom or cognitions in the absence of concentration or samapattis. Therefore, the required conditions for arising of cognitions are samapattis, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to learn about them in this chapter. The topics that are going to be covered will be the 8 fundamental samapattis, how are they acquired, and how do they generate each other. We will also learn a bit about the preliminary concentration and also the intermediate meditation. And then we will continue with how these samapattis arise, and we'll continue with which samapatti are capable to destroy the contaminants, and how do samapattis arise in the three realms. First, let's take a look at these 8 fundamental samapattis. In short, they are the 4 dhyanas, 4 dhyana meditations, and the 4 arupya samapattis, the 4 samapattis in the formless realm. And you must have noticed that I use different names, I use different words. I use the words meditation for the dhyanas, and I only use the word samapattis for those that belong to the arupyas, belong to the formless realm. We will explain that very soon. But first, we need to be aware that the samapattis we learn or we talk about in this chapter, they are meditative attainments. They are not they're not as birth. So when I say as birth, I mean, if you recall chapter 3, we have discussed those different places, different planes and stages in the 3 realms. So we have the 4 dhyana heavens, and we have also the 4 planes that are in the formless realms. We are not talking about those places where sentient beings are reborn into. Instead, we talk about the causes, the retributive causes for those dhyana heavens and also the formless realms. So we are talking about samapattis as the meditative attainments, as the causes, and that is the status or a stage of mind and mental events. Okay, bearing that in mind, let's take a closer look on these 8 samapattis. The 4 dhyana meditations are describing that the practitioners are concentrated due to these meditations, and and they're capable of contemplation of the object. And now let's try to clarify, let's try to differentiate between these words. Concentration, which corresponds to the Sanskrit samadhi, and then we have meditation, we can also call it dhyana, and then we have samapatti as well, which in English is the meditative attainment. What are the differences among these three terminologies? Well, I'll share a few statements, which I'm going to say a few words, and then try to experience, try to feel the difference between these three. Okay. First, I would say that a concentration in the stage of desire realm is not meditation and not samapatti as well. A concentration with a mind of kamadhatu is not meditation, not samapatti. Next, the 4 dhyana meditations are also concentrations, and they can also be called samapattis. And finally, the non-conception samapatti and the cessation samapatti, these two are not concentrations and they're not meditations. However, they can be called as samapattis. So if I tell you these 3 statements, 3 claims, well, from these you will see the difference. And the difference is that concentration as one of the 10 generally permeating manufactors, well, they can exist in all 3 realms. They can exist even with a mind of kamadhatu. Like even us, like we have never cultivated on the dhyana meditations. We can still have this concentration as a mental factor. We can still be concentrated in a certain object. So it is a very wide concept, and of course it can be deeper. So like it can be meditation. So meditation can also be concentration, and as long as it fits this definition, right? So concentration is a very wide definition. And then we say that the 4 dhyana meditations, they can be called concentration, they can also be called samapattis. But then here comes the next one, the last one is, I say the non-conception samapatti and the cessation samapatti, they will not be called concentration, and they will not be called meditation either. The reason is, concentration or meditation, they all are with mind. The mind is present in a concentration or in a meditation. However, if a mind is absent, like in a non-conception samapatti or the cessation samapatti, where the mind and mental events, they are in absence, they can only be called samapatti or meditative attainment in English. So that's the difference in these 3 terminologies. Okay, we continue with the 4 arupyas samapattis. Their meaning, or they refer to the 4 formless meditative attainments, and they are the sphere of infinite space, the sphere of infinite consciousness, the sphere of nothingness, and the sphere of neither conception nor non-conception. The first one, sphere of infinite space. So this sentient being, this Pudgala, has been detached from the 4th dhyana of the form realm by disliking the forms. So they start to meditate and they start to dislike the forms at the lower realm, and then gradually will cultivate and obtain this sphere of infinite space that belong to the formless realm. The next one is the sphere of infinite consciousness. So further detached from the sphere of the infinite space by disliking the infinite space. And then the next one is called the sphere of nothingness. So it's further detached from the sphere of infinite consciousness by disliking it. And the last one, or you can also say it's the highest one of the samapatti in the formless realm, is the sphere of neither conception nor non-conception. and sentient being that has this kind of samapatti has been detached from the sphere of nothingness by disliking it as well. Or shall I say that they obtain the last one by disliking the conception in the lower realms or in the lower stages, yet it is not completely without conception. And that is why it is called sphere of neither conception nor non-conception. And we also need to remind you that the name infinite space, the first sphere, the first formless samapatti, the sphere of infinite space. Here, the space, or the infinite space, or the third one, sphere of nothingness. Infinite space or nothingness, these two have absolutely nothing to do with the emptiness in Buddhism. They're just different things. Okay, so please don't mix these different terminologies. When we say emptiness, we mean emptiness. It's just a different thing. It is not nothingness, and it is not infinite space. Very important. Keep it in mind. Okay, so these are the 8 fundamental samapattis. Next, let's take a look on the acquisition of samapattis. How can one acquire these samapattis? And before that, we need to know that samapattis can be of 3 types. Clean one, defiled, or pure samapattis. The first 7 samapattis, namely from the 4 dhyanas, plus the first 3 samapattis in the formless realm, the sphere of infinite space, of infinite consciousness, and of nothingness. These 7 samapattis can be clean, can be defiled, can also be pure. However, the last one, the 8, which is the sphere of neither conception nor non-conception in the formless realm, it has only 2 types, either clean or defiled, except the pure. Because the mind of Bhavagra, the mind at the sphere of neither conception nor non-conception, is too weak to give rise to the pure factors. Now let's take a look at these 3 kinds of samapattis. How are they acquired? First, for clean samapattis. Well, they're clean, so it's good. However, it's impure, so it's good and impure. This kind of samapattis is associated with good factors, of course, like non-greed and so on. Clean samapattis can be acquired by detachment from the lower stage. For instance, a sentient being gets detached from kamadhatu and obtain the first dhyana meditation. Okay, then we say that he acquires the first dhyana meditation, the clean samapatti of the first dhyana, by getting detached from the lower stage, which is the kamadhatu in this case. A clean samapatti could also be acquired by birth. For instance, a sentient being dies from the 4th dhyana and be reborn into the 3rd dhyana. He will then get or obtain the clean samapatti in the 3rd dhyana by being born by birth into this stage from an upper stage. And this kind of acquisition for clean samapatti does not apply to the last one, to the sphere of neither conception nor non-conception, because you cannot be reborn into Bhavagra from any higher stages. There's no higher stages than Bhavagra. Okay, about defiled samapattis, it can be acquired through 2 ways, either by retrogression or by birth. By retrogression, it means that, for instance, a sentient being is having a mind of the 2nd dhyana. However, after a while, he arises defilement, and he lost the clean samapattis of the 2nd dhyana. Therefore, he will get the defiled samapatti of the 2nd dhyana instead. This is the first way to acquire defiled samapattis, and that is by retrogression at one's own stage. And another way to acquire defined Samapattis by birth. Again, like into the lower stage, which is similar to that of the clean Samapatti. For instance, if one died in a sphere of infinite consciousness and gets reborn again into the sphere of infinite space with a rising of defilements, and then he will get the defiled Samapatti at the infinite space. Okay, that's about the defiled Samapattis. And then the third type is the pure Samapattis. How are they acquired? Well, they can only be acquired by detachment, not by other ways. Can only be acquired by detachment, and this is only applicable for noble beings. Because pure Samapattis, they are supramundane and associated with pure cognitions that are not apprehended by defilements. And say by detachment only, we mean the pure paths and Samapattis, the cognitions, because these pure factors, they're not tied to any of the three realms. Therefore, not by birth. You cannot say that someone acquires a pure Samapatti only because he gets reborn into a certain stage or a certain realm. That's about the acquisition of Samapattis. Now let's take a look at the reciprocal generation of Samapattis. Well, the word reciprocal means that these different kinds of Samapattis, the pure, the defiled, and the clean, they can possibly generate each other. Well, there are of course exceptions, but there are rules for them to generate each other. And by saying generate, I mean to generate a different kind of Samapatti in the next moment, to serve as an instantly preceding condition for the other kind of Samapatti. So we have some major principles. The main principles, number one, the pure Samapattis will not generate the defiled Samapattis. Pure factors will not give rise to any defiled factors. Very understandable, right? And likewise, the defiled Samapatti will not be able to generate the pure Samapattis. Fair enough. And then if we say it more precisely, we would say that the pure Samapattis will generate pure or clean Samapattis. Clean Samapattis will generate clean or pure Samapattis plus a defiled Samapatti at its own stage. And defiled Samapattis will generate defiled Samapattis at its own stage as a uniform outflow. Also possible to generate a clean Samapatti at its own stage if it is refined, if it is improved. And also possible to generate a clean Samapatti at a lower stage, which we will talk about it very soon. So that is the first principle. The second principle would be that the good Samapattis, namely either the pure or the clean Samapattis, they're both good. And they can generate other Samapattis or maybe themselves, maximum plus or minus 2 stages. So plus themselves, then with their own stage, we're going to have five stages. That is the range, the power of such a good Samapatti can reach. It cannot reach above 3 stages. And I'll show you with examples below. The next principle, the last one, would be that the defiled Samapatti does not generate upwards. For instance, one abides in a defiled Samapatti in the first dhyana. Well, from that defiled first dhyana, it is impossible to generate a clean or pure Samapatti at the second or third or fourth dhyana. That is impossible. Never gonna happen. It will only generate Samapattis at its own or lower stage. Now it is time to take a look on some examples. If we start from the pure Samapattis, what can it generate? Well, if it is the pure first dhyana, well, then 6 Samapattis can arise from this pure first dhyana. Why? Recall the main principles. It is a pure Samapatti, so it can generate Samapattis maximum plus minus 2 stages. So this first dhyana plus two stages, so it means it can generate Samapattis at the second and at the third dhyana. And theoretically, it can also have minus 2 stages. However, there is no minus stage for the first dhyana in this specific case, because below the first dhyana, you got a mind of Kamadhatu. There's no Samapattis existing in Kamadhatu. Therefore, 3 stages. And for each stage, this pure Samapatti at the first dhyana can generate either pure or clean Samapattis. So there are 2 alternatives. 3 stages, 2 possibilities, you got 6. Yeah, so that's what I'm saying, that we will have 6 possibilities. 6 different Samapattis could possibly arise from the pure first dhyana. And how many could arise from the second pure second dhyana? Same principles. It can go up to 2 stages above, and then it has 1 stage below, which is the first dhyana. So, and plus the second stage themselves, their own stage. So we got 4 stages. And for each stage, we can have either pure or clean Samapattis. So that's 4 times 2. There will be 8 Samapattis which can arise from a pure second dhyana meditation. And the max number will appear from the third and the fourth dhyana plus the sphere of the infinite space, the first one in the formless dhatu, formless realm. Because for these 3 stages, they have 2 stages above. And you can also count down 2 stages below. So plus their own stages, they will have 5 stages where Samapattis could be generated. And 5 stages. And then, for each stage, a pure Samapatti can generate either pure or clean Samapattis. So we got 2 alternatives, 2 options. So 5 times 2, we have 10. 10 Samapattis could arise from these 3, from the pure Samapattis at these one of these 3 stages. We can continue with this principle. We can just continue. For instance, if I ask you how many Samapattis can arise from the sphere of infinite consciousness, well, you can start your calculation. We have, again, you can count upwards 2 stages above this, and you can also count downwards 2 stages above this. So there are 5 stages, of course, plus its own stage. And then we have 2 options, either pure or clean. So there's going to be 5 times 2. However, as one of the upper stages, which is the Bhavagra, it has only clean or defied Samapattis. It does not have any pure Samapatti in Bhavagra. Therefore, you have the -1, which is the pure Samapatti in Bhavagra. There's 5 times 2 plus -1, you got 9. If you calculate the number of Samapattis that can arise from a pure Samapatti in the sphere of nothingness, well, in that case, you can count upwards, but you can count only 1 stage above it, that is the Bhavagra. But you can count up to 2 stages below it. So we have 4 stages, plus its own stage as well. So 4 stages and 2 opportunities, 2 options, pure or clean, so 4 times 2. And again, the Bhavagra does not have any pure Samapatti, so you have the -1, then 4 times 2 minus 1, you have 7 Samapattis that can arise from a pure Samapatti at the sphere of nothingness. So I am sure now you have mastered the principles. You can just do the calculations yourself to be more, so you can get more familiar with this. This is from the pure. This is what if we start from the pure Samapattis. And now let's try to see what would happen if we start from the clean Samapattis. Well, basically they're almost the same except one thing. Because from a clean Samapatti, a defiled Samapatti at its own stage could also rise. Therefore, and the power, the ability for this clean Samapatti can also reach plus minus 2 stages above or below. And you just need to add one more, which is the defiled Samapatti at its own stage, to the numbers we have calculated earlier. So from a clean Samapatti at the 4 dhyanas plus the 4 spheres at in a formless realm, we are going to have those numbers that are one more than the previous numbers. So we're going to have 7, 9, 11, 10, and 8 Samapattis to arise from. And you can, I believe you can do the calculation yourself. And then from the defiled Samapattis, well, recall the principles. A defiled Samapattis can only generate defiled or clean Samapatti at its own stage, plus it can also generate a clean Samapatti at a lower stage. So if this defiled Samapatti gets refined, well, it will become a clean Samapatti at its own stage. If it's just a uniform outflow, then it will maintain as a defiled Samapatti. Or sometimes the sentient being would have such a mind that I would rather take the clean Samapatti at a lower stage instead of abiding in this defiled Samapatti at my current stage. Well, in that case, they will have a chance to switch to the clean Samapatti at the neighboring lower stage. For instance, I'll give you an example. Let's say a sentient being is now abiding at the defiled 4th dhyana. He is now abiding in a defiled 4th dhyana meditation. Then, by uniform outflow, this defiled 4th dhyana meditation can give rise to defiled 4th dhyana meditation. It just continues. It's a uniform outflow. If nothing changes, it will still maintain that kind of defiled meditation, or defiled Samapatti at the 4th dhyana. Or if it is refined, if the defilement at this stage, at the 4th dhyana, is abandoned, then it will recover recovered as a clean 4th dhyana Samapatti. Or if this sentient being admire the good factors, he might then switch the mind to the clean Samapatti at the 3rd dhyana, which is the lower neighboring stage. Now here is a question, as Vasubandhu challenged us. In his commentary, Vasubandhu asked, as we know that a defiled Samapatti is not in a position of being aware, right? It has defilements. It is annoyed. It is addicted to its own meditation. So in this kind of status, this sentient being is not being aware. So how can such a defiled Samapatti give rise to a clean Samapatti? Well, the explanation by Vasubandhu is that due to the previous vows of this sentient being. And a vow could go like this: I would rather take the clean Samapatti at the lower stage than staying in a defiled Samapatti at a higher stage. So if a sentient being has vowed like this, and such vow would work, just like before one sleeps, he can wake up in time. If you vow, you said, I would like to wake up maybe at 6 o'clock next morning. If you keep this vow before you sleep, well, very likely you will wake up around 6 o'clock. So, and likewise, that's how the clean Samapatti and the defiled Samapatti, if a defiled Samapatti can also give rise to clean Samapatti at the low stage. That's an explanation by Vasubandhu. Okay, so far we have talked about the 8 fundamental Samapattis and how they can be acquired, and the reciprocal generation, how they can generate each other, the fundamental rules, and also with some examples. We will continue with the preliminary concentration and intermediate meditation before we talk about those Samapattis able to destroy our defilements and how they can arise.